We are starting about the inter-VLAN routing. What is inter-VLAN routing? Inter-VLAN routing. So before we understand about the inter-VLAN routing, why we really require inter-VLAN routing in the production network, that we will discuss. Okay. So we have we have two different switches, and in between the switches we have two different VLANs are configured, VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. So this is what our requirement. Okay. So now one of your senior, like your manager, is going to say you that. So I need to have a communication between the IT users and the sales users, right? So let me draw the topology first. Okay. So we have a switch one here. It's a 48 ports of switch. Likewise, we have a switch 2. It is also a 48 ports of switch. Right? In between the switches, we have a trunk link. We have a trunk link in between the switches. Or else I'll take this one. So this is our trunk link, right? So we configured here trunk. So we'll consider this our gig 1/48 port number. So this is also our 1/1/48 port number. So we configured here trunk manual trunk, and we allowed the VLANs switch port mode trunk allowed VLANs all. So we allowed all the VLANs. So here in the VLAN in the switch one, see this is what the requirement. In the switch one we have a VLAN 10 for sales users and VLAN 20 for IT users, sales users and the IT users. Right. Likewise, in switch 2 also, right, in switch 2 also we have a two different VLANs, the same VLAN, like VLAN 10 for sales and VLAN 20 for IT. Right? Clear? So we have few of the LAN users are sitting in your LAN, like few of the users are sitting here in the LAN. Now this pieces, okay. So here we allowed VLAN 10, here we allowed VLAN 20, right? In this port, So here also we allowed VLAN 10 for this port, and this is for VLAN 20 port. Now you can see from VLAN 10 PC to VLAN 10 PC, is the communication will possible or not? Just let me know. VLAN 10, guys, unmute yourself and let me know, okay, whether from VLAN 10 PC to VLAN 10 PC communication is allowed or not. Like it is the communication will be possible or not, like this via this trunk link. So we studied about the VLAN side, and we studied about the VLANs as well, and we studied about what is access port, and we studied about what is trunk, right? How we are going to trunk, how we are going to configure the trunk, right? So, so my question is, between VLAN 10 to VLAN 10, the communication is possible or not? Can anyone? Sneha or Sai is the communication is possible between VLAN 10 to VLAN 10?
No, not possible, sir.
Not possible. VLAN 10 to VLAN 10. I'm asking about VLAN 10 to VLAN 10. Same VLAN, right? Same VLAN communication will be possible, buddy, because we used to configure here in this particular port switch port mode trunk allowed VLAN all. I mentioned here all. Here also I mentioned like switch port mode trunk allowed VLANs all. So this particular port is going to carry the multiple VLANs information. So we have here the VLAN 10 PC. Here also we have the VLAN 10 PC. That both the PCs are going to be communicate with each other without any issues. And this VLAN 20 PC and this VLAN 20 PC are going to be communicate with each other. But here the problem is this VLAN 10 user will not able to communicate with this VLAN 20 as well and this VLAN 20 PC as well. The inter-VLAN. So if you communicate from VLAN 10 PC to VLAN 10 means what? The same VLAN, right? The same VLAN communication will possible by default same VLAN communication will possible by default, but from VLAN 10 PCs to VLAN 20 PCs, the communication will not be possible. So to make this possible, we need to do the inter-VLAN routing. So that is why we require inter-VLAN routing. So try to understand what is first concept, right? Inter-VLAN routing. Why we require. So whichever the protocol you are studying, right? Whichever the things you are studying in the networking, first understand why really inter-VLAN routing is required. So we have the VLANs, right? We have the VLANs concept. So even though we have the VLAN concept, again we have the inter-VLAN concept. So what is the major difference between these two? So when we are going to configure the VLANs in the switches, the same VLAN communication is possible, but the inter-VLAN communication will not be possible. From VLAN 10 PC to VLAN 20 PC, we will not be able to communicate. To achieve that, what we require? So we require any layer 3 device. We require any layer 3 device, and we need to perform the inter-VLAN routing. So this is how we need to be remember. Okay. So let me note down few points, okay, so that it will be important for interview perspective. So what is inter-VLAN? Inter-VLAN routing is a process of forwarding the traffic from one VLAN to the other VLAN, from one VLAN to other VLAN using a router. So I mentioned here, right? So to do the inter-VLAN routing, we require any layer 3 device, any layer 3 device. So what are all the layer 3 devices we have? So the layer 3 devices, right? Layer 3 devices we have like router used to work on the OSA model, layer 3, right, network layer. Even though we have a layer 3 switches as well, we have a layer 3 switches we used to call as a MLS, multi-layer switches. So in layer 3 switches you can do the routing functionalities as well as switching functionalities. Router you used to do only the routing functionalities. So to achieve the inter-VLAN routing, we require any layer 3 device. Either it could be a router or layer 3 switch or MLS switch, multi-layer switch. So what is inter-VLAN routing means? Inter-VLAN routing is the process of, okay, forwarding the traffic from one VLAN to the other VLAN, from one VLAN to other VLAN. Clear? The port where the router is connected. So we required what? We required a router, right? So let me draw that topology as well. You are going to understand really. So what we are going to be discuss now. Now, again we have a switch here. This is my switch. Okay. The switch is having a 48 ports. Right, few of the LAN users are connected here. LAN users are sitting in your LAN. LAN stands for local area network, right? Now, so here in this switch, we created a VLAN 10 and we created VLAN 20 as well as we created VLAN 30. So we have a 3 different VLAN. So I'm going to put this PC1, right? This is my PC1 in VLAN 10 and PC2 in VLAN 20, right? In PC3, we are going to configure as a VLAN 30. So 3 PCs are in a 3 different VLANs. Now, so as we discussed, right? To achieve this inter-VLAN communication, we need to perform the what? We need to perform inter-VLAN routing. To perform the inter-VLAN routing, we require any layer 3 device. Either it could be a layer 3 switch or it could be a router. So now we will take the router. So I have a router here. To that router, I'm going to connect with this PC. Okay. Right. Now, this PC here, this particular interface, we need to configure as a trunk. This interface we need to configure as a trunk. And here we need to configure as a sub interfaces. Sub interfaces. You need to configure as a sub interfaces. Then what will happen, right? So here we are going to divide this physical interface. This is our physical interface, right? So consider this is your like gig port or fast Ethernet. You can take anything. Like I'll take gig 1/1. So here we have a gig 1/48 port number. So 1/48 and 1/ both are same, like gig ports only. Now, so what we need to do, right? So this physical port, whatever the physical port we have here, this physical port we need to be configured as a sub interfaces. So by doing this, by doing like that, we are going to achieve the inter-VLAN communication. So the communication used to be flow from VLAN 10 via this port and again coming back, and it is going to the respective destination VLAN. So if your PC VLAN 10 PC wants to communicate with VLAN 30 PC, then the traffic used to go to the switch and switch forward to this router like VLAN 10's gateway. Then VLAN 10 gateway is going to be redirect that traffic to the VLAN 30's one. So that is how the traffic used to be like routed between the switch and this layer 2 device, layer 2 switch, and this layer 3 router. So router is our layer 3, right? Layer 3 router. So to achieve the inter-VLAN routing, we definitely require a router. Right? So what inter-VLAN used to do? Inter-VLAN is the process of forwarding the traffic from one VLAN to another VLAN, right? So the port where you connected to the switch, right? So this port, so the port where you connected to the switch should be configured as a trunk. So this port you need to be configured as a trunk because we need to allow all the VLANs here, VLAN 10, 20, and 30. Yeah. Then the physical interface on this router, right? So I discussed here, this is our physical interface, right? What is logical interface or the virtual interface? Loopback. When you are going to configure the loopback, that is your virtual interface, a logical interface, right? But this is the physical interface where you can see this particular interface. The physical interface on the router is going to be divided into as a sub interfaces, and each sub interfaces associated with the respective VLAN from this subnet. Now I will take for VLAN 10, guys, I'm going to take 192.168.1.0/24 network, and for VLAN 20 we are going to take 192.168.2.0/24. For VLAN 30 we are going to take 192.168.3.0/24. So these are all the three different networks, right? As it is a class C network and all the networks are different network. Now we can assign, we are going to take the gateway from this one and we are going to use the IP addresses also. So whichever the sub interfaces we are going to create here, right? So whatever the sub interfaces, like this is my physical interface, gig1/1. So first we need to log in into that particular physical interface in the router's physical interface, right? Interface gig1/1. So you need to perform no shutdown, then come out from that particular interface. So this is what the first task you need to be performed. So once you're done with this, right? Once you're done with this, then you need to create the sub interfaces, guys. You need to create the sub interfaces. The same interface again, okay? So again login into the router, the same router, like interface gig1/1 dot. So this one I'm going to create for VLAN 10. Okay, you need to specify the number. So this time I'm going to configure for this for VLAN 10, and then you need to use encapsulation dot 1q 802.1q. That is what it is, a dot 1q. Okay, so in the trunk we have two different encapsulation, right? Either we can go with the ISL inter-switch link or dot 1q 802.1q. So once you log in this interface, you need to be perform no shutdown, then create the sub interfaces, interface gig1/1 dot 10, then encapsulation dot 1q. So here you need to call the VLAN ID. So this is your number. This is what your number. You can take any number, but for the reference purpose, take the same number, whichever the VLANs you are going to be used. So I'm going to take here the VLAN dot, the VLAN ID is I'm going to take for this VLAN 10. Then I'm going to take from this subnet. So this is the subnet we are going to take for the VLAN 10, right? So I'm going to assign the IP address here, the gateway. Okay. So whatever the router downstream interface IP address used to become the gateway for all the LAN users, right? So but here we have a three different VLANs. So we need to divide this particular physical interface as a sub interfaces three times, right? So that I can assign the three different VLANs gateways on this particular three sub interfaces. So I'm going to assign here IP space address. Then I'm mentioning here 192.168.1.1 and the followed by the subnet mask is /24 exit. This is what you need to perform for VLAN 10. Like for the same VLAN 20, for the VLAN 20, again you need to log in into the router. And once you log in into the router, interface gig 1/1. So this time we are going to configure for VLAN 20, right? So I'm going to take the reference number as 20.20. Okay. Then repeat the same command, whatever the command here, like encapsulation dot 1q and the VLAN ID. So for which VLAN we are going to create this particular sub interface. So for VLAN 20, right? So I'm going to mention here VLAN 20 because here I allowed all the VLANs. I allowed all the VLANs. Okay. Then we need to mention the IP address for this sub interface. So IP space address. Like this is what, right? For VLAN 20 we took this subnet 2.0/24. So I'm going to assign here 192.168.2.1 and followed by the subnet mask /24, then come out from this particular interface. So repeat the same type of configuration for VLAN 30 as well. So once you configure this one, right? So whenever your user is trying to reach to the VLAN 20, the traffic used to go to the switch and it is go via this one. Like so logically here, this physical interface are going to divide into a three different sub interfaces. Like how? So here you will have one interface. Here you will have one interface, right? So now, so this interface, this interface is responsible for this one, and this is responsible for this one, right? So here you have a gateway also. So every PC we used to assign the IP address, right? So I'm going to assign the IP address for this particular machine, PC1, 1.10. The subnet mask is /24. Gateway is 1.1. This is what the gateway I mentioned here. So likewise, for VLAN 20 also, the IP addresses we are going to assign 2.10 and the subnet mask /24. The gateway will be 2.1. Clear? So now see what will happen. So once the data, okay, if this VLAN 10 PC wants to communicate to VLAN 20 PC, first it used to hit for his gateway, right? So where is the gateway we configured? We configured here the sub interface. So logically it is a physical interface, but we divided that physical interface as a sub interface. So the traffic used to go to the gateway first, which means here in this particular interface 1.1. Then this router is going to take the decision based on the destination IP address. The source IP address is what? 1.10. So he wants to communicate. This PC wants to communicate with this PC, right? 2.10 PC. So the source address will be 1.10 and the destination address will be 2.10. So this packet used to be received to the router, right? So this is how the traffic used to go to till here. Then router is going to examine what is the destination. Destination is 2.1. So it is a 2.1, right? So it is going to send that traffic to this particular interface because we configured 2.1 here. So that where this interface traffic used to come again to the switch and it is going to be for the VLAN 20's PC. So this is how the inter-VLAN routing is going to be work, guys. So you need to be like go with this concept twice or thrice because it is a very important thing in interview. It is going to be asked you. Okay, so by using a single physical interface, we are going to divide a multiple sub interfaces here, like multiple sub interfaces, and we are going to achieve the inter-VLAN routing. See here earlier, what is the issue? So here, so when we are doing the before inter-VLAN routing, we have two different switches, and we created VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 here. Here also we have VLAN 10 and VLAN 20, but VLAN 10 and VLAN 10 PC can able to communicate. Okay, but VLAN 10 to VLAN 20 PC we not able to communicate because to achieve that particular task we need to do the inter-VLAN routing. To do the inter-VLAN routing, we require any layer 3 device, either it could be a router or layer 3 switch, MLS, multi-layer switch, right? So that topology we draw here. Okay, we are using here in the layer 2 switch, and to achieve the inter-VLAN routing, we required a layer 3 device that we taken router and we created here the sub interfaces. We have a single physical interface. On that single physical interface, we divided into two sub interfaces. So this is what the two sub interfaces we divided: gigabit 1/1.10 and 1/1.20, and we assign the respective gateways, the VLAN address. For VLAN 10, we take this 1.0 subnet and we assign the gateway here. And for VLAN 20, we took 2.0/24 subnet and we assign that the gateways in this particular interface. So whenever the VLAN 10 user wants to communicate with VLAN 20, so the traffic used to go like this, guys. So this is what your inter-VLAN routing. Clear? So this is what your inter-VLAN routing. The same thing you can achieve with the help of the layer 3 device. So you require a layer 3 device actually. So I'll tell you that as well. So we covered about the router, right? So how we are going to take the router. So if you are going to take the router, this is what the process. So if you take the layer 3 switch, what is the process? How we need to be configured? So this is what the router's process. If you use the layer 3 device as a router, or else you can use with the help of layer 3 switches also you can perform this. If you take the layer 3 switch, is again the simple layer 3 is a bit simple. You need not to do the much configuration. Consider here you have a switch, guys. See, this is your layer 3 switch, guys. Okay, layer 3 switch. In this layer 3 switch, the layer 3 switch will also come with this 48 ports, right? So this is your switch. So we have a different ports. So we are going to create the VLANs first as a layer 2. So first you need to create the layer 2 VLAN, layer 2 VLANs. Then you need to configure as a SVI, switch virtual interface, as a layer 3. So earlier here we used to configure the gateway in the router, right? So here the gateway. So now we need not to create the gateway in the router. So we can configure in a layer 3 switch itself. See here. So create the layer 2 VLANs. Yeah. So create the layer 2 VLANs and consider here we have a switches. Okay. Which is connected this, and here we have two other PCs. Both are belongs to VLAN 20. So these PCs are belongs to VLAN 10, and these PCs are belongs to VLAN 20. So VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. How the communication really is going to happen? So for VLAN 10, we are going to take the subnet as a 1.0/24. 1.0/24. For VLAN 20, we are going to take 2.0/24. So first we need to create the layer 2 VLAN. So once you perform the layer 2 VLAN, then you need to configure the layer 3 VLAN. So layer 3 VLAN is like simple interface. Go to the configuration mode, interface VLAN 10. Once you perform this interface VLAN 10, right, you will have an option to assign the IP address directly on this particular one. Like IP address, the gateway is 192.168.1.1 and the subnet is /24. No shutdown, exit. So this is what your layer 3 like SVI, switch virtual interface. Before you create that, you need to create the layer 2 VLAN. So what is layer 2 VLAN? So we'll go to the switches and VLAN 10, specify the name to whom you are going to configure, name for IT users. So this one you need to create first, the layer 2 VLAN, then you need to configure it as a layer 3 VLAN. This is your layer 3 VLAN. So repeat the configuration for VLAN 20 also. So whenever your layer the VLAN 10 users are trying to reach the VLAN 20's user, so the traffic is going to be shifted here, like the traffic decision is going to be taken here itself, because the gateways sorry, the gateways are configured in the layer 3 switches. It need not to go to the router. So earlier we used the router and the traffic used to go like this and it is coming, right? So earlier we use the router, we use the layer 3 device router, and we configured here the trunking, and the traffic used to be passed via this switch and via the router, and it is going to be come to the VLAN 20 users. But this time, okay, so that all the traffic decision is going to taken care by the layer 3 switches. So this is what the advantage of the layer 3 switches. So if you are doing like this, so the latency is going to be reduced. The latency is going to be reduced, and it is the bit convenient process. Even if you see, I told you in the previous classes also, in the core switches, in the core layer, guys, core layer. So we used to have a layer 3 switches. We used to have a layer 3 switches, right? So even in the catalyst also we have the layer 3 switches. Even in the Nexus as well, we have the layer 3 switches. So in the core layer, definitely we will have a layer 3 switch only. So that layer 3 switch is going to perform your routing functionalities as well as the switching functionalities. There we are going to configure the So in the access switches, we are going to configure the layer 2 VLAN, and the core switches we are going to configure as a layer 3 VLAN. Okay. So all the traffic is going to taken care, all the traffic decision or the traffic engineering decision is going to taken care by the layer 3 switches. So this is what you will like inter-VLAN routing, guys. So this is what you are inter-VLAN routing. So if you do the inter-VLAN routing in the router or the switches to verify what is happening, right? So the command is show IP route. So by using this show IP route, so you are going to identify that whether the inter-VLAN routing is, so how it is doing the, like the sub interfaces are created or not. So you are going to decide. So this is what the inter-VLAN routing is. So inter-VLAN routing, to achieve the inter-VLAN routing, we definitely require any layer 3 device, either it could be a router or switch. So explain you the process. Okay. So without inter-VLAN routing, we will not able to communicate with the different VLANs from VLAN 1 to VLAN 20. So without inter-VLAN routing, the communication will not be possible between VLAN 10 to VLAN 20. To achieve that, we need to perform the layer, like inter-VLAN routing. To perform the inter-VLAN routing, we definitely require a layer 3 devices. So in layer 3, router is going to work in the layer 3 of the OSI model, open system interconnection, or else we will have a layer 3 switches or multi-layer switches. So by using a router, if you want to perform the inter-VLAN routing, this is what the process. So need to configure one side, like whichever the interface is going to connect towards your router, that interface you need to configure as a trunk. And in the router side, the physical interface, you are going to divide into a multiple sub interface. So how many VLANs do you have here, like in the switch? So that many times you need to divide this particular physical interface as a sub interface. Clear? On that respective sub interfaces, you are going to assign the gateway information. Right? So it is going to happen a hair pinning, guys. So the hair pinning. So once the traffic is going here, then it is going back. Then again traffic VLAN 10 to VLAN 20. If you want to communicate, it is going to do like this. VLAN 10 to VLAN 20, and if you want VLAN 10 to VLAN 30, it is again going. So it is a kind of hair pinning. The traffic used to be do like as a hair pinning shape. Okay. So if you want to do the with the help of like a layer 3 switch, then this is what the process. So how many VLANs do you have? That many times you need to repeat the layer 2 VLANs communication configuration. Then you need to create the SVI, switch virtual interface. To configure the SVI, this is what the syntax of the configuration. So just go with the interface and the interface VLAN and the number of the VLAN. Then you can specify the IP address for that VLAN. No shutdown, then exit. So you need not to create and perform the no shutdown, because as it is a switch virtual interface, by default once you perform this command, right, interface VLAN 10, then it is going to come up, but still, so as a best practice, I just written here the no shutdown command as well. So when you use the router, right, then use the router, so do create the sub interfaces. So this is not the, like this is the number, guys. This is like interface gig 1/1 dot. You can take any number here, but the best practice is whichever the VLANs you are going to create in the switches, right, the same number you can take here, because it is going to be a bit easy to identify for which VLAN we are going to create this particular sub interface. Even you can mention the description also. Even you can mention the description also, but take the same number, that would be good. And then the command is encapsulation dot 1q. Then here you need to use the VLAN ID. If you are going to use this particular sub interface for the VLAN 10, then you need to mention VLAN 10. If you are going to use sub interface for VLAN 20, then you need to assign the VLAN ID here. So assign the gateway address, whichever the gateway address you are going to take from this subnet. So we know that, right? So we are very good in the IP addressing. So 1.0/24 subnet, we used to get the around 255 IP addresses. That like dot 0 is the network ID and dot 255 is the broadcast ID. The remaining ID, like the valid IP addresses, right? So from that valid IP addresses, you can take any IP address as a gateway. That's not a mandatory to, you just need to take the 1.1 only. It's not mandatory. You can take anything. But do remember, so when we are doing the labs, so we used to take 1.1 because it is easy to remember, the first come first serve, like that. So you can take anything. So this is how we need to perform the labs, guys.